So next continue. Page number 125, realization. The next higher in ranking and position is the Dhruva. He enjoys mastery over Brahmand Bandal and falls under the category of Muni. His sphere of work is much larger and he exercises control over the Vasus. His duty is to look after the cleaning of the atmosphere of all unwanted thoughts and ideas prevailing within. Besides his routine work, he has also to look to numerous other duties entrusted to him for the time being. The state is acquired after the thorough illumining of the region located in the human frame within the hilum shadow. Hilum shadow ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. Hilum shadow ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ essentially right side of the sternum ಅಲ್ಲಿ there is this area, right side of the sternum. When that area is thoroughly illuminated, in other words, the Pinda Pradesh should be entirely illuminated. When the Pinda Pradesh is fully illuminated, then you can get into the state and rank of the Dhruva. Where is hilum shadow? Hilum shadow is next to the right side of the sternum. Sternum is sternum andre the chest bone, other the right side. Higher above is the position of Dhruvadipati who directs the work of the Dhruvas. The state is acquired after gaining mastery over the point of the navel. His sphere of work extends to the whole world, but his work is similar to the nature to that of the Dhruva. Besides his routine work in connection with the cleaning of the atmosphere, he too also has to look after the two causal events and incidents happening at different times. These godly functionaries are highly developed souls of great caliber who work strictly in accordance with the will of the nature, in utter disregard of the feeling of individuality of the self. Their working is automatic and mechanical, and they have no personal choice or discretion in any matter. So, in a slightly different way, the point of navel anta illi helidare. Dhruva antandre 6ನೇ point. Dhruvadipati is somewhere between the 6th point and the 10th point. Sahasradal Kamal baratalva, the center point of Sahasradal Kamal is the state which is next to Parshada. So Dhruvadipati is in between Dhruva and Parshada, somewhere around the 8th point and it goes. The position of Parshada, who is above Dhruvadipati, is bestowed under rare circumstance when nature stands in dire need of it. He regulates and directs the activities of various subordinate functionaries mentioned above and imparts various duties to them, reserving for himself only the most important ones. His will works in all important matters, example, great enterprises or wars, in order to bring about the designed results. He works all the destructive and constructive plans of nature. His sphere of work is confined to this world only. The state is acquired when a man gains complete mastery over the central point of the Sahasradal Kamal. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ಪಾರ್ಷದ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ central point of the Sahasradal Kamal. So, are between the 10th and the 11th point. So, Dhruva is 6th point. So, Dhruvadipati is somewhere in between. You can say around 8th, 9th point. He is not clearly given which point, but you can say around 8th, 9th point. The position of the Mahaparshada is the highest in rank. It's the last godly post and it's very rarely bestowed except when nature stands in urgent need of drastic change or an overhauling of the world. He enjoys the highest power. He starts from the right region. It starts from the right region of the occipital bone as given in the diagram. So, occipital bone nodidala, central region nodidala, central region alli on the right side. Such is the marvelous attainments of a Raja Yoga, which a man can achieve if he is really earnest about it and proceeds along the right path under proper guidance. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. For example, let's give a very simple example. All are elected MLAs. But although all are elected MLAs, not everyone becomes ministers. But to become a minister, elected MLA is one of the qualifications. Does it make sense? You need to be elected either in the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha in order that you become a minister. Right? So the point is, many of the people, actually, many of the Abhyasis or preceptors pass through different points as their journey. But not all of them are given this particular godly position. So it can be given during their lifetime or it can be given after their lifetime. But it's like a godly position. It's a post, you can say. And people who pass through and gain mastery over certain areas are given that particular post. So no, not lot of people might actually be in the sixth point. But not everyone will be given the position of a Dhruva. Dhruva entails some specific piece of work to be done in cleaning the atmosphere and managing the affairs of the Vasus. Does it make sense? So that is the Dhruva. Then you have the Dhruvadipati, then you have the Parshada and then Mahaparshada. Vasu is within the realm of the Pind Pradesh. Okay. Any
Well, one
questions?
question. Yeah, yeah. Earlier days they used to say Surya Deva, Vayu Deva. Are these also positions
Yeah.
as we can perceive it now after joining Sahaj? Earlier they used to think that Surya Deva was a different god and Vayu Deva was a different god. So are those positions in spirituality, or that was
I've
just an
already answered
imagination?
that. I've already answered this. Answer is yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
All gods that you think of, Indra, Agni, Varuna, Vayu, all of them are positions. They are roles in nature. We tag it to one soul, but it's not like that. Different souls can occupy that particular position at different points of time. That's the reason why you keep hearing these stories even after so many millennium of history. The positions are there and different keep souls keep coming and going. For example, Arjuna is blessed by Vishwamitra that if he were to win the contest of trying to maintain his adherence to truth, he will make him the co-owner of the post of the Indra for a certain period of time. In other words, that position can be held by two people. Like you can have two deputy chief ministers, two deputy prime ministers. Why not? So some of these things are very similar to what we have in our human hierarchy, in our forms of governance. In fact, we can say that our forms of governance is borrowed from the nature's forms of governance. We borrow and then we just implement it. Any other question? Before we go to the last chapter, the My Vision. Only 2-3 pages. So basically, you have to cross that point and then you have to gain mastery over the powers of that point. And then, depending on the need or necessity from nature, this particular post might be given. That's all it is. So these are the 3 criteria to be kept in mind. One is that you need to cross that point. Second is you need to have mastery over the point. And thirdly, there should be a need or necessity in nature for that particular post to be appointed. When all the 3 criteria are met, then a particular soul who has crossed that point and mastered that point is appointed to that particular post to look after the affairs.
It's it, does it have to be one who is still on the earth and has crossed it, or it can be anybody or outside also?
It could be anybody. Like you can make a bureaucrat a minister. You can make any common person a minister, but they have to get elected within 6 months after being made minister, right? Likewise, you can make anybody, but the point is they need to have crossed that particular point, have mastery over that particular point. Only then. So unlike here, where you can actually become a minister prospectively, become a MLA or MP prospectively, here it has to be first achieved. You should have crossed the point, you should have mastered the point, mastered the powers of that particular point. Only then you are considered for that particular post. So it's like you have to have finished your engineering or degree, or you should be on the verge of, that campus interview happens, no? Campus interview is like you are taking the students from the campus even before they pass the last final semester, right?
Huh.
Based on what they have got.
But this is also possible, no, brother. For example, just like Lalu Yadav, he put his wife as the chief minister. He installed his wife as the chief minister, though she had no qualification in terms of votes. And he was governing, or whoever was governing. Even that is possible, isn't it? To do nature's work, master could appoint somebody or make a person a preceptor somewhere, though he has not reached a certain point. The master could work through him to achieve certain goals. Possible?
I will leave it to your interpretation. But that doesn't apply. The Lalu Prasad's example doesn't apply here. You cannot have a vicarious responsibility for a work. That is pure manipulation. You cannot have manipulation in nature's work. Of course, master can make anybody the medium. Now, for a person to work as a preceptor, they don't need to be, because one of the criteria is not their spiritual attainments. We clearly say it's their willingness to serve. That is the criteria for preceptor's work. So for nature's work, it is the willingness to serve and their deservingness. So without the deservingness, generally nobody is made anything. And that should be kept in mind. Lalu Prasad purely manipulated the entire system. That kind of a manipulation cannot be done in nature. Nature does not allow it. So that's why we say that some of the people, as they cross, they have no choice or they have no personal choice. For example, when you read the Dhruvadipati, you say that they can have no personal choice or discretion in any matter. They are just like machines. Their working is automatic and mechanical, and they have no personal choice or discretion in any matter. Very clearly written.
And I asked this question anyway, at the cost of my sounding immodest, okay? And I was just about to leave. Circumstances were such that Gaddafi was assassinated. Okay, now I don't know if this is nature's work or whatever, but when I came back and I was attending a satsang at Banashankari, somebody just joked, "Yen brother, ee tara marbetralla, huh?" So, so that's why I asked this question. I left just about 3-4 months before Gaddafi was assassinated.
Let us not apply the spiritual rules to what happens here on earth. Because here on earth, there's a lot of other things that is happening in terms of people's manipulation. But that is not possible when people have lost individuality, when they go higher. When they go higher, they lose individuality. There is no selfishness. When there is no selfishness, then the terms and conditions will be totally different. So we can only give a human level analogy to some extent. If you extend it beyond a certain thing, it becomes invalid. Beyond a certain level, human level approximations or correlations will become invalid. Just to get an idea regarding how it is, that's all it is. Okay.
Brother, these positions, all these positions, like who gives it to them? Is it nature or the master? And if given, how will they know that they have given this responsibility?
They will be communicated. How will you know that you have been made a minister?
Comment.
You will get some communication.
Appointment letter.
Some communication you will get. Right. So same thing. Some communication you will get from the master. Lalaji comments about Babaji's position from one level to another level. So the masters communicate to the disciples and say that this is what they have been made of. So that will be there. Communication will be there. Otherwise, you will not know. See, in order to exercise the responsibilities, you need to know, no? Otherwise, how will you exercise the responsibilities? So it will be communicated. ಎಲ್ಲ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ನಲ್ಲೂ ಈ 2 ಪೇಜ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ದಂಗ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೈಲೆಂಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಲಿ ಅಂತ. ಆಯ್ತು. ಸರಿ, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಇನ್ನು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿದ್ರೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕೇಳಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿ, ಮೈ ವಿಷನ್. The world these days is passing through a critical stage. The political situation is growing extremely intricate day by day, and the economic conditions has become very depressing. Moral, religious, and social degradation has almost reached its final limit. An atmosphere of rivalry, unrest, and insecurity prevails everywhere. Every nation looks with jealous eyes upon her neighbor and utilizes all her resources in finding out means of exploiting it. The statesmen of the world are not quite ignorant of these facts. They are trying every means to reach a satisfactory solution of the various problems confronting the world. But the efforts of all the organizations set up for this purpose do not appear to bring forth encouraging results. The problem of world peace, so prominent in the minds of the greatest politicians and statesmen, is a mere illusion or a mirage. The state of the affairs in India does not hold out any bright prospect. Dissensions and party feelings are prevalent everywhere in the country. Self-interest is predominant. Moral principles are neglected. The problem of bread and butter is acute. But in spite of all these, some of them think that the country is progressing. The sign of progress they take to be the gradual drifting of the country towards a Western type of civilization, which is based on pure materialism. But now the age of materialism must come to an end. The old order must change, yielding place to new. The present structure of the world civilization based upon electricity and atomic energy shall not remain in existence for long. It is destined to fall soon. The whole atmosphere is so much charged with the poisonous effects of absolute materialism that it is almost beyond human control to clear it. The time has already matured for a change which is imminent and inevitable, and for which the godly energy in human form is already at work, as referred to in my book Efficacy of Raja Yoga. It may not at present seem convincing to some of us, but it is a fact beyond doubt. The world shall know of him and his work in this respect after some time, when events have sufficiently come to light. Godly work is always accomplished through the agency of some human being of high caliber and not directly. The reason is that God does not possess mind, which is the only instrument to bring things into action. Man possesses mind, which can be utilized for the purpose, but only when he has lost his feelings of individuality in toto. What remains in him after he has achieved a complete negation of the self is not the human mind, but only the godly mind in the pure and absolute state. Now nature works through this godly mind, though apparently it exists within the frame of a human being. ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಿಲ್ಸೋಣ, ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾಳೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಇಲ್ದಾರೆ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಅಂದರೆ ಇನ್ನು 2 ಪೇಜ್ ಇದೆ, ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡೋಣ.
ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡೋಣ brother.
I present before the readers a glimpse of the world that is to be as I see in my vision. Believe it or not, but that is my reading of nature in the clairvoyant state. Signs are evident that the destruction of the undesirable elements in the world has already commenced. Such examples have occurred many a times before during the periods of existence of this world. Rama's war against Ravana, Noah's flood, and the battle of Mahabharata are some of the many instances. Such destruction is accomplished through various means. It may be through war or internal feud, through heavenly calamities such as volcanic upheaval, or through other similar causes. The time is now ripe for its final phase, and the world is rushing towards it with headlong speed. The action may come into full swing by the close of the present century, but some of the events enumerated below may take a longer time to come into effect. So, ಈಗ next, what are the changes that is expected ಬರೀತಾರೆ. The heat of the sun has been gradually diminishing for some time past, and it may be a baffling problem for the scientists to tackle, as after some time life on the surface of the earth may quite become impossible owing to insufficient heat in the sun. No solution of it is within their mental approach, in spite of all the material power at their command. I may assure them that it will not at present diminish to that extent. ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗಲೇ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮಾರು ಸಹಸ್ರಾರು ವರ್ಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. It will take many thousands of years. So you don't need to worry about that. He is just giving a clue that this is one of the things that is going to happen. The present decrease in the sun's heat is only meant to expedite nature's process of change, and the personality deputed for this work is utilizing it for the purpose. So that's another clue he's giving, that when the heat from the sun decreases, then there's a suggestion or hint from nature that a change is about to occur. That's a hint. It is an
just a question. Sorry, just a question. So can I relate the spiritual heat and the physical heat now? That means the physical heat is being borrowed by that personality for spiritual work. Is that the meaning?
You misinterpreted it totally.
Okay, because here it says. Because here it says utilizing, the word utilizing. Nature's process of change, and the personality deputed for that work is utilizing it for that purpose. Is utilizing it. So that's why I thought.
We'll come back to the question later on. Okay. It's an unfailing sign of an imminent upheaval in the entire structure of the world, and after it, the sun will regain its full glory. The same sign will appear again at the time of Mahapralaya, complete dissolution, but it is a far off thing. I do not like to dwell upon it here. One thing I may disclose in this connection for the interest of the readers. At the time of Mahapralaya, the pole star will deviate a few degrees from its position and will grow a bit hotter. So he's giving some clues. So the heat of the sun will come down, the pole star will deviate, and it will become a bit more hotter. A powerful region, energy in the form of the gas, will begin to gush out from it and will ultimately destroy the world and everything else in existence. The action of the destruction will start from the North Pole. Okay, some clues is given. How does the Mahapralaya start? There are some clues elsewhere also. As long as the direction of the movement is in a clockwise direction, there will be creation. At the time of Mahapralaya, the destruction starts because the movement now starts becoming anti-clockwise. So when we become anti-clockwise, it goes back to the center. When it is clockwise, it moves away from the center. So this is one clue. Second clue is that the sun's heat comes down. Third clue is that the pole star will actually move by few degrees. Fourth one is that there will be the heat in the pole star increases. Fifth sign is that there is a gas which gushes out from the pole star, and then that actually starts the process of destruction. These are all the 5 clues. In consequence of the present upheaval, drastic changes will come into effect, and the new structure of the world will be quite different from the one that we see today. The fate of Great Britain will be sad. A part of it, the southern portion, will sink into the sea. The issue is, many of these things that we read here in my vision, they are not given in a particular time frame. He is not given a time frame that within this many years or this many centuries, all these things will happen. He's just given a clue what are all the things that is likely to unfold as we move forward. So the fate of Great Britain will be sad. A part of it, the southern portion, will sink into the sea. A volcanic energy in the latent state is at work in the heart of London, and in course of time it will burst forth in the form of volcanic eruption. So one of the reasons why the southern portion of Great Britain will sink is that there is a volcanic eruption which is dormant underneath the southern portion of England, and that will erupt. The Gulf Stream will change its course and the country will become extremely cold. The fate of Europe too will be similar. Smaller countries will lose their existence. The future of Russia is in darkness. She cannot survive. The very weapon that Russia will use will serve as a piston on the very weapon of Russia will serve as a piston on her own head. Communism shall have its grave in its homeland. That we have already seen that. Communism has fallen. As for America, she is in imminent danger of losing her wealth, and in the course of time, she may almost be reduced to paupery. Her power and greatness will too sink along with it. But this is the natural course of all empires. So I was just watching a YouTube video on what is the course of an empire. In the last 2000 years, the same pattern are repeated. Starting from the empire of the Roman Empire, then followed by the Spain Empire, then the third one is British Empire, and now the American Empire. The critical process in this entire thing is the devaluation of the currency, or the currency is losing its reserve status. The moment that happens, the country goes down drastically. That's the reason why Trump is fighting to make sure that the dollar is retained as its currency. But it cannot be maintained because the same pattern happened to the previous empires, that they will borrow and spend when they don't have the money. This is the same thing that has happened across the board in all empires. That's the downfall. As long as you spend within the means of your earning, you can still maintain the empire for a long time. But the problem is, each of these empires, they are driven by the curse of expansion, influence, and projection of power. So what then happens is, in order to maintain that projection of power elsewhere, outside your country, you require money. So you don't have the money. The money that you get within the country is not sufficient to maintain that projection of power. So what then happens is, they borrow. They borrow in the name of a great nation or an empire. So initially people will be willing to give money. As you go further and further, the people's willingness to lend money to these great powers decreases. So in other words, then they start printing money, which is what America is doing. Every empire has done the same thing before. And they used to do it slightly differently. Now they are printing money on a paper. Previously, for example, the Spanish coin, their currency, when they were at the peak of their empire, used to have 100% silver. No, as when the thing progressed, the silver content in that coin, the Spanish empire's currency, they gradually brought it down to less than 5% at some point of time. What was 100% silver? In other words, 100% silver means you are actually giving something of a value which you say is valued at. So what happened was, at some point of time, when they reduced the silver coin, the currency's silver content to less than 5%, people refused to take money, the silver coins, as a way of exchange. So the currency fell. When the currency fell, the Spain empire collapsed. Same thing happened with Britain. Britain borrowed left, right, center in order to fight two world wars. And they did not have any money after that. So they lost their empire. Now, exactly the same thing pattern is repeating. The broad contours are the same. that you essentially spend more than what you've got, that will be the start of the downfall of the empire. Now you can see just yesterday or day before yesterday, I just read the news that American debt had hit the 38 trillion number. So many people don't even know how many zeros a trillion has, right? And that is the amount of debt that they carry. What are they doing? They're just printing money. And why is it still in vogue? Because people still have some faith in it. The moment the people lose the faith, it just collapses like a house of cards. That's the reason why probably this president and maybe the next president will fight left, right, center to retain the currency as the central reserve. But you can already see that people have actually ditching the dollar and going to gold. And that's the reason why the gold and silver prices has hit the roof. Because every central bank is chasing gold or silver. They are now not holding their reserves in dollar. It just indicates that we are in the final stage of the collapse. It is just imminent. So when we say that there will be huge changes, one of the changes that will happen, why will America become pauper? Because it will lose that dollar status as a reserve currency. And that is the general thing that happens to all currencies, all empires. And each time the empire thinks that each story will be different, but it cannot be different. The same story repeats. So there is a very nice story how the empires collapse. About 10-15 minutes video on the YouTube. If you are interested in watching the different stages of the collapse, how an empire is built and how an empire collapses, you can just have a look at that. Serena.
Would you
India will
also
give
say it's
you
because of would you also say it's because of the succession, brother? Who succeeds whom, you know? Because gradually there's a decline in the way people think. If you look at the Mughal Empire also, Aurangzeb or Bahadur Shah was the last emperor, and how they fell. You know, I mean, this is being said about Dubai also now. The initial rulers of Dubai really worked hard to bring it to the stage that it is in now. Whereas the Dubai Empire's son, grandson will just be given to luxury. They'll enjoy themselves and therefore lose that status.
India will regain her pristine glory and she will rise to prominence under her own government. Her I don't know the meaning of this, suzerainty will extend far and wide, and the world will look up to her as a beacon of light. So you can just find out the meaning of that word, suzerainty. But she
Yes,
too
Ram.
will have her share in the world upheaval. The germs of rebellion are developing in the country. A part of the country, the eastern portion of Bengal, will still sink into the sea. Already we know that by the end of in the next 50 years or 100 years, Bangladesh, half of Bangladesh will not be there. Remember, this book was written in around 44. So prior to that, there was no Bangladesh. The split had not yet occurred as a separate country. So that's why it's written part of the Bengal. So we know that Bangladesh is more than half of the Bangladesh is going to sink into the sea because of the global warming. A part of the country, the eastern portion of Bengal, will sink into the sea. Volcanic energy is also active and may seriously affect some parts of it, especially the state of Bihar. The Deccan Plateau may in the remote future turn into an island, but that's something that even the scientists have predicted that in due course of time, the northern India and the southern India are going to separate, and the southern India, the Deccan Plateau, is going to be a separate island. There will be enormous bloodshed all over the world, and the loss of life through various causes will be so great that the world population will be considerably reduced. The new structure of the coming world will stand on bones and ashes. A type of civilization based on spirituality will spring forth in India, and it will in due course become the world civilization. No country or nation will survive without spirituality at its base, and every nation must sooner or later adopt the same course if it wants to maintain her very existence. So, a new civilization. That's why many religions, even if you go to Brahma Kumaris, they're also talking that the Satya Yuga is coming back. So it's not Satya Yuga which is literally coming back. It's just that there will be fine tuning the basis on which civilizations are built. The civilization as of now is built on materialism. So it doesn't have a substantial spiritual basis. So what is going to happen in due course of time is that the spiritualism is something that's going to become the base of the next civilization. And that's what many other people in other organizations or systems are calling it as the Satya Yuga is going to come back. We are not going to go back to the Satya Yuga so fast. And their concept is every 10,000 years there will be change of Yuga. That's their concept. Every 10,000 years. And even if you look at from that perspective also, Satyuga is not going to come back so fast because we only finished 5,500 years of Kali Yuga. So some of these things, when people say that some renaissance will happen in the spiritual field and it will become more grounded or it will become the basis for further evolution, people interpret it in their own way and put it into their own words. And that's when sometimes confusion can occur. So a lot of Brahma Kumaris people follow that. Many other organizations are also talking about it. In fact, there is a Harvard model which says by 2040 everything will collapse. Economic model between 2035 and 40, everything that we see as of now will collapse. It will not be the same as we see and experience it. So, what was the question earlier on, brother? We just skipped that. I said we'll come back later on.
Yeah. Okay, let me read that passage again. The present decrease in the sun's heat is meant only to expedite nature's process of change, and the personality deputed for that work is utilizing it for the purpose.
The sun's
So
heat.
my question.
Got the question. I got the question. The sun's heat will not be utilized in the way that you are thinking because the sun's heat itself will reduce. In other words, when this material heat comes down, it also means that the spiritual heat goes up. So the person who is deputed for this person is going to use the spiritual heat to bring about a change in the world. They will not use the material heat because the material heat comes down actually. So when the material heat comes down, the things are conducive for more spiritual heat to gush in. And that is what is going to be utilized for the work. So the material heat itself will not be utilized because it is anyway coming down. So under those conditions, the spiritual heat is made utilization of and the necessary changes are brought about. So it's not that because the personality is using the sun's heat, the sun's heat is going to go down. No. The sun's heat is going to anyway go down. That is the condition created by nature. Under those circumstances, when the material heat goes down, the spiritual heat comes in and that is utilized for the changes to be brought about into the world. Okay. Any other question?
So, brother, that means there is a proper structure how to.
Everything happens in a very methodical way. The creation has occurred methodically, so destruction also is going to occur methodically. Likewise, when we do take sittings, the work that occurs on us is methodical. It is not haphazard. We build from one session to the next session. We build from that session to the next session. So it's a very methodically built work. Even on an individual, even when you take a sitting, many times we might feel that it's not like so, but it is how it is. That the work occurs methodically. Everything that happens in nature is very methodical. There is no haphazard thing. It is just that sometimes things occur abruptly, so to say, because we look at it abruptly. For example, a volcanic eruption does not occur suddenly. The volcanic eruption will be building up, the energy will be building up for a long period of time before it finally erupts. Once it reaches a threshold, it erupts, that's all. Just like the boiling of the milk.
The cloud burst.
The heating of the milk will go on for some period of time, and then at some point of time, once it crosses a certain threshold, it just kind of comes out, pours out. So the trouble is, for example, we read here in the news, that particular volcano erupted. Then we read some other news that this particular volcano erupted after a few years. But it's not like they were sitting quiet for n number of years and suddenly one day it erupted. No. The telltale signs of the eruption will be there long before the eruption actually occurs. Now, if we know how to look at the telltale signs, it becomes easy for us to grasp it even before it occurs. Right? So that's how it is. No thing occurs in nature just accidentally, suddenly. No. It occurs because of various conditions being created. So even otherwise, if you just look at the Lalu's example that brother was talking about, who knows, Rabri Devi might have had some amount of samskaras which will entail her to occupy a high position because of the various good deeds that she might have done in the past lives. So under such circumstances, although Lalu's intention was to rule indirectly, but then the wife's situation was that she had some amount of positive deeds that she had done in the past, the results of which was due to her. So the nature will try to bring these two things together and then work. So even if you look at it from that perspective, so but then the fact that the intention was to rule indirectly, that is not going to be decimated by the fact that nature actually facilitated what happened. That will still be there. The fact that the intention to rule indirectly was there. That's why some of these things are very, very subtle points. It might appear on the surface something like that, but behind the workings of the nature, there will be a lot of other things that will be taken care of or taken into consideration. Okay. ಸರಿ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಮುಗಿತು ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿ ಎಟ್ ಡಾನ್ ಮುಗಿತು ಸೊ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ವಿಚ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ವಿಚ್ ಬುಕ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಟ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ನೌ
Raj,
Hmm?
efficacy of
Efficacy of Raj Yoga. Towards Infinity ಓದಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ or did we read in the other group? I think 2 more books are left, if I remember. ಅಲ್ವಾ